Alright, so for A, we're trying to find possible potential energy. We have to know that the integral of force is negative potential energy, or the negative integral of force is potential energy. The reason why it's negative, that's generally how we define it. That when we do work, the potential energy is negative. For example, when we lift something off the ground, as you may recall from the example of gravity, does negative work. That's just how we define it. And it's more intuitive that way, because that means when force and displacement are in opposite directions, the work is negative. That's just how we define it. You need to remember that. So to find the max joules, we need to figure out when our force, we need to consider our force. So we need to take the negative integral of our force. That means when the force is positive, our potential energy would be negative. So we need to find a point where force is no longer negative and when it's 0 and just before it turns positive. So that means we must set an inequality of whatever force is. In my case, it's 4x minus 13. Use your own numbers. And we need to figure out what number of x it is just before it starts going into the positives, which in my case is 3.25, because it's just 4x minus 13 equals 0. You just divide 13 by 4x. For you, it may be different. And then we're given that at x equals 0, the potential energy is 29. We'll need this because we need to integrate our force, because remember, the integral of our force is our negative potential energy. So we integrate our force and then multiply by -1. So here I just took the integral of my force. You will have different numbers. Then I multiply by -1. You may have seen, why does the c remain plus? Why does it remain 29 when we plug it in? Because this is where reading comes in. The c, this 29, is already given to us in potential energy. So it's not in force. It's already in potential energy. So we don't have to do that multiply by -1, because it's effectively already been that way. So then this is our potential energy at a point. We already found the max point was when x equals whatever you got earlier up here. So then you just plug in that number for your x, whatever number you got. It's not going to be the same as mine, it might be, into this equation, or whatever equation you got, and that gives you the potential energy. Now for B and C, it's basically the same question. B and C is asking you what negative and positive value is x of the potential energy equal to 0. So you should already have an equation for the potential energy. You just used it. Should be something x squared plus something x plus your constant, which was given. So then we want to know when this equals 0. And we know there's going to be a negative and a positive answer. And to find them, we simply just use the quadratic formula. So you just set it up. And then when you solve it, you should get two results, one positive, one negative. Those will be your answers. A simpler way, if you have a graphing calculator, just plug in this formula right here. And either, if you have a button for it, solve for roots, or just see when it crosses the x-axis.